Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. Today, I am here with Chloe Jimenez-Peters, and I'm really excited for this call because I feel like this conversation is going to be really enlightening. Chloe is a rapid transformational hypnotherapist or rapid transformational therapist who specializes in helping people with PMDD, of which more later, to helping people to survive and get through narcissistic relationships, trauma, and all sort of things around relationships, as well as where we got into this mess in the first place with our patterns and so on. So I've given you a really rambling introduction, but all will become clear. Welcome, Chloe, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Rosanne. It's really cool to be here.
Yeah. So, let's just start off with where you began with this journey, because I feel from having read your bio and everything, it started off with this PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Is that correct? Am I right in making that assumption?
Yeah, although I didn't realize, well, I didn't know what PMDD was. So when I was around 14, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and then clinical depression at 17. And I would always have like a week or two off around my cycle from school. So I was missing a lot from school because I just was actually looking back in freeze response. I was just with this chronic fatigue, severely depressed. They put me on antidepressants. And my poor mum was driving me around the country, driving me down to London, all over, trying to find all these alternative therapies and trying to get to the root of it. Um, and we never really did. Then I went to medical school. I was like between, oh, do I want to be a plastic surgeon? Do I want to be a dentist? And now looking back, I think, wow, I wanted to be a plastic surgeon because that was my idea of making people happy if they were happy with their appearance.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, yeah. That's such a
Interesting.
classic thing, isn't it? Yes. But
Yes,
at that young age, that's kind of what we were fed, wasn't it? If you look
exactly.
pretty, then everything's going to be fine. You can have the fairy
Everything's,
tale.
yes, the fairy tale will, the prince will come and rescue you and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And then the dentistry, I had an incredibly horrible phobia of dentists when I was a child. And I just thought I don't want anyone to ever go through that again. So this was how I got into this 11-year stint of medical school and dental school. And it wasn't until I was in a situation where my partner at the time and father of my three children, he left. He in my third pregnancy, he ran off with a girl, 23-year-old girl from his work, never to be seen again, and stopped child support. So that was my radical awakening. And I remember sitting on my living room sofa, my green velvet sofa, looking at my two little boys playing. And I hadn't been sleeping. I was heartbroken. It just going on for months and months. And I'm pregnant. And these thoughts were going through my head. You know, when you're in a long-term relationship and you can see your future, and then suddenly the rug is pulled from under your feet, and you're like, what will become of my life now?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my baby boys, realizing you're not present. And I was obsessing over what he was doing, where they were, like stalking them on Instagram because I was in
Yeah.
denial. I really wanted to get back on track with this relationship. I just refused to have a broken family. And I just had this epiphany in that moment. And when this thought went through my head that was, who's going to want you with three kids? And I just thought, and it was like my inner child was triggered. It was like, well, that's what you felt like. You felt like a burden as a child because that's the message you received as a child. There's no way you are doing this for your children. And it was that moment where I just thought, I don't know how, and I don't know in what way, but it doesn't matter. I have to dig really deep here and stop that pattern because I could see this fork in the road. I could see if I continue to think like that, those beliefs are going to affect my children and they're going to have a completely different programming to the programming they could have if I just decided, you know what, we're a great package, and these children are a gift. And I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that they know they're enough. And I never want them to think that they're not enough because he couldn't stick around. So I went on this really, I went down a rabbit hole of personal growth,
Mm.
and the law of attraction. And really, I could really feel like this fire inside me, like, oh, there's something more possible, could feel the potential just bubbling up inside me. And then an advert came up, Marissa Peer talking about rapid transformational therapy, and everything she was saying, just, it was like light bulbs going off, ding, 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 ding. I was like, this is what I should have always been doing. This is what I should have always been doing. And so I jumped into the training. And once I could understand the whole subconscious mind and the nervous system, I mean, they don't teach this in medical school. It's crazy how our perception activates the nervous system chronically, and it creates most diseases. And it was in that training that I learned what PMDD was. I hadn't a clue before. And it was only because one of the graduates from RTT had healed her own PMDD while she was training, just with practice sessions. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh, I must have had this. This is what I had. And, you know, the more people I speak to, the more I realize people don't know what it is. Not even doctors know. You know, the doctors will, when you go to the doctors, they'll offer you SSRIs, the antidepressants, or, you know, the contraceptive pill. And when that doesn't work, they'll offer you a hysterectomy just to get rid of the hormones. And I just find that insane, because the hormones, you know, in this patriarchal society, we've been programmed to hate on our hormones.
Yes.
Hormones are showing it's our innate wisdom, isn't it? It's our innate wisdom.
It is.
And we learn to kind of hate on ourselves and reject ourselves. That's only going to make the problem worse, because the problem is, when you really get down to it, this self-rejection, this splintering of self in childhood with these misperceptions. So the hormones really show you, when we have this shift in hormones, we go into like this evaluation mode, like this self-assessment mode, and it gets you really close and personal with those subconscious limiting beliefs or trauma imprints that are coming up to be resolved every month. And this is our innate wisdom as women that we are programmed to continuously ignore, and put earplugs in and numb it all. But this is stuff that needs, your soul is like calling out for you to transform it. Hey, look, there's a mutation in your belief system that is activating your nervous system. That's why you're raging at your partner and your children, because of these core beliefs. This is why your nervous system is coming to protect you, to shut you down, because you are perceiving at a deep subconscious level danger. Not, you know, like humans are wired to belong. So if you have a belief, there's something wrong with me, I'm unlovable, that you've picked up in your childhood, because 95% of our beliefs are created before we're 7 years old, then clearly you're going to perceive rejection from people around you, fear of judgment and fear of not mattering at a subconscious level. And this is really activating on your nervous system. Your nervous system will stay chronically activated. And this is how disease is caused, right? And so with PMDD, we're oscillating between fight or flight with the anxiety and the rage. And then once you reach your threshold of fight or flight, your nervous system comes to protect you further and puts you into freeze response, and will shut you down into, you know, this is depression, dissociation, and this is what tends to happen in these couple of weeks.
And inevitably that's going to affect all the relationships that you have. And I recognize this. I don't think I suffered with PMDD, but I certainly suffered with, you know, PMS. And it's just such, God, that's so enlightening to think that those hormones, all they do is just bring you closer to your traumas, to your little beliefs. And I used to have a moment where I used to call it eating worms, because it was that, I don't know if you even knew that, it was that sort of childhood song, is nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go and eat worms. And it was exactly those, you know, and I would get into my eating worms phase. Everybody hates me, nobody loves me. And I just feel this overwhelming sense of self-pity and miserable and just like, you know, and teary and so on. And then, you know, a few days later, I'd sort of spring out of it. But that was, so what I'm understanding you say is that it's the hormones that bring you closer to those beliefs. so that you're more in touch with those core beliefs and they just spring up and you don't know where they've come from or why you're suddenly feeling like this. Um, and so you indulge it and you believe it because we tend to believe our emotions. When we have a thought, our first instinct is to go, oh, well, that must be true because it came out of my mind.
Yeah.
And we invest in that and we believe in it. And just having those thoughts can make us doubt ourselves and go, oh my God, I'm going crazy, or because I have these thoughts so frequently, it must be that they are valid. But what you're saying is that all it's doing is just exposing, sort of drawing back the curtains, if you like, on our deepest trauma that we picked up when we were in that root chakra phase of 0 to 7, that very basic trauma moment where all of our beliefs and programming are really instilled within us.
Absolutely. The hormones act as a truth serum. I mean, we are cyclical beings and we live in a society that's really masculine, doesn't honor our cyclical needs. So,
Mm.
first thing is learning about your cycle, that you have a spring, summer, autumn, winter of your cycle, and that in the autumn, you will go, it's a time of introspection, it's a time of self assessment. And we do start to go, we start to assess where we are in life. Well, if these beliefs are there, which I think it's universal, we all have them,
Yeah.
because it's just part of being human. It's going to show you what needs to be alchemized, and so it's really interesting because when I started doing this work, people just wanted freedom from their symptoms.
Mm.
That's all they wanted. They just didn't want to be feeling depressed or anxious or rageful, and they'd come out with so much more. The freedom of, the emotional freedom, of course they do, but the relationships, they were realizing, oh gosh, I am, settling for less than. And so they'd be either resolving their relationships, setting unconscious boundaries now, or maybe letting go of the relationships, or, realizing that actually I want to do purpose work. So many people have gone on to realize their vocation because they've changed those core beliefs. And changing your core belief to what I want doesn't matter, I don't matter, to what I want matters more than anything, you start
Yeah.
to actually realize what it is you love and give
Yeah.
yourself permission to
Yeah.
follow your heart. You're just coming back to wholeness with this work. And you're absolutely right. I think the biggest realization for me was, you're not your thoughts. We are so identified by our thoughts, aren't we? It's crazy. So
Deep.
I teach that apart from the one-to-one transformational hypnotherapy. I also have these lessons, which in their own right are amazing modalities, metacognitive psychology, to help you get in control of your thoughts and realize actually you're not your thoughts. Just
Mm.
because they're coming up, you don't have to choose to jump on that train of thought, because after 3 minutes of thinking something, of being on a train of thought, it starts to have a physiological effect on your body. So really getting in control of your thoughts, reshaping your nervous system with the polyvagal work, and changing the core beliefs at a subconscious level with the rapid transformational therapy, it just sets you free.
Yeah. So I just want to rewind because I want to come back to relationships, but really asking for myself. Um, when we are talking about the hormones responses and how we respond to the hormones, when we come to perimenopause, is because that is a whole, and some people really suffer through their perimenopause, and other people just kind of, they kind of make their way through it okay. But the rage and the, obviously there are very sort of physical symptoms and stuff that happen. But is that the same but slightly different with the hormones? Like it brings you back to yourself? Because I've talked to a lot of, my friends, but also clients who get to this stage and go, do you know what? I'm not putting up with this anymore. Like I'm not gonna, and they get into this place where they find their purpose and they're like, actually, I really need to be in a place where I'm honoring myself. there's a kind of wisdom that comes with this because the hormones are doing something completely different to what they are during the rest of our cyclical life. They're doing something completely different. And the shift in mindset, I find, can be super, super empowering. And a lot of women just sort of they fade into it and they go, oh, well, it's me done. I'm just going to shrivel up into a little ball and give up. But in fact, it's the most empowering place because there's a sort of shedding that's available during that time as well. And, I want to give that optimism to the younger people listening as well, that it's not the end of the road. It's actually the beginning of a whole new, incredible chapter that is there.
Absolutely. It's the same principle. You're being called to really expand in consciousness, and it's a radical awakening.
Yeah.
People that, my clients, when they start with me, they say, oh, I haven't been diagnosed with PMDD, and maybe it's perimenopause. And, I'm like, it just doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing. You've got this stuff. Your feelings are the only real thing you have. It's trying to get your attention. Let's go to the subconscious root of it and see what it's all about. And do the inner child work, do the parts work in hypnotic brain states, transform the blueprint. It's really going to the core.
So tell me about rapid transformational therapy or hypnotherapy. What is that as a modality? I like, most people go rapid, great. I'm in, get me done, sorted, 3 weeks and I'm fixed. How does rapid transformational hypnotherapy or rapid transformational therapy actually work? And I know it's a reprogramming and, even the work that I do, I feel like through the chakras, people are beginning to gain an understanding. And I always feel that this understanding of the energetic body and of the self, this deep inner work, is best done kind of gently, move it gently, slowly, just begin to unfold and unpeel that onion layer by layer. So I'm always interested when someone says, no, I can do it like that, in a flash. So tell me about this modality.
So rapid transformational therapy is a modality. Well, if you know Marissa Peer, I trained with Marissa Peer, so it's her modality. She founded it, and after 30 years of doing hypnotherapy, she came up with her own modality, and it's just phenomenal. So each session is around 2 hours long. So we do the hypnotic induction, we get you into a relaxed state. And then the first thing we do is we regress. And we work on one symptom at a time. So in my package, for example, we have 2 RTT sessions. Now, each session needs 3 or 4 weeks after for the integration and for listening to the recording that I give you after that session, just to really cement the new neural pathways. So I start with if there is a freeze response symptom like depression, we will go to the depression first because I want to get you out of freeze response first. So we'll go to the root cause of the first symptom. And we'll just ask the subconscious mind to show you a scene, a memory, a time from your life, all to do with the absolute root cause and reason for this depression, for example. And so we do this 3 or 4 times. Regress to scenes, and often we have scenes that people don't remember consciously, but it's amazing because all that really matters is the feeling of that child in that moment. And so children think very differently. Children are all feeling, and children tag beliefs with, and it will always be this way. So here we are, seemingly adults, but having kind of childish reactions to things when we're in our sensitive days, because we've had these beliefs. I'm bad, I don't matter, there's something wrong with me, and it will always be this way. So we regress back to these. We really extract the beliefs. You can see the patterns from each of the 3 to 4 scenes. The same beliefs come up in each scene. And then we use, there's a number of tools in the toolkit to do we do the inner child work, some other reframing tools, so that you really get to tell yourself a better story. This was a perception of a helpless, dependent child whose needs weren't being met. So not necessarily something horrendously traumatic that happened to you, but just that you weren't understood. Because, a lot of the women I work with are empathetic women. They're highly sensitive people. And as children, they weren't understood. And that's very scary for a child. And
Yes.
here's where we then lay down these limiting beliefs, these trauma imprints that stay alive in your body, and keep your nervous system activated. So then we also go into parts therapy, because you're not the anxiety, you're not the anger, that's not you, you're not the depression. These are parts that you have acquired in order to protect you. So we also do the parts therapy in this 2-hour session. That's a really powerful tool. So it's 2 hours of really getting to the root and reframing it all. And then the last bit is the transformation. That's me giving you the truth about you. You've already realized it, but I'm giving you the new empowering beliefs, and you will go away and listen to that. It's a 15-minute recording. You'll listen to that every day for 21 days to really rewire the new beliefs now that you've pulled out the old weeds.
Yeah.
That's how a rapid transformational therapy session works.
That sounds so beautifully powerful. I think that is, yeah, I can totally see how that works. I can totally see how that, it's like, for me, that's like going into a meditative, being in meditation and doing a little self-exploration, and then using some affirmations to just bombard the brain with fresh ideas and rewiring those neural pathways, as you say.
Yeah.
It's
And
an incredibly powerful thing to do, and it's
it
so
is.
necessary.
Sorry, but I just want to say the important bit is the reframing, because the affirmations on top of, without resolving the root
Mm.
cause. So the really important part is the reframing over and over and over again, so that you can see as your adult self that could never be true ever again. So it's
Yeah.
going back in time and changing the meaning that was made in that moment. And then it's almost like you're in this portal where these slower brain states that you can choose what to then take on about yourself. And that's an infinite resource. Then you can choose what you like to believe about yourself, because you've been believing lies all of these years. So the reframing is really important. And then people, well, depression that they've been stuck with for decades, after a day or two of the first session, they're just like, it's gone. It's just gone, because I've understood, I've made the unconscious conscious. That's not me
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it's so I have a question, which is something that I'm always really interested in, because you say that you go and it's the inner child work, and I am not denying that that period 0 to 7 is super important and very formative. But I also feel like that next stage from 7 to 14, where we're going through a huge amount of change, and we're going from a child to a teenager. We go through puberty, we have our sexual awakening, we have different, the way that people view us is completely different. And the way people respond to us and the expectations of us are really different. And I often feel that what should we, maybe we call it the inner maiden, that teenage girl often has as many um, beliefs put in onto her as the child. I mean, the fundamental ones definitely I understand come 0 to 7, but that like who you are and how you appear in the world and how you respond to people in the world and how people treat you and how you let people treat you is often formed in the teenage years. Is that
I
something?
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. And you can see that in the regression work that I do. So it's like 50-50. Some
Mm.
scenes do come up, as even in the womb. Some people go back to a scene of being in the womb, because we're all feeling, we're programming ourselves to belong from being the moment we're conceived. And so, yeah, absolutely. I would say that just as many scenes come up for that 7 to 14 stage as they do from the 0 to 7 stage.
Because I
Absolutely.
feel like that stage, 7 to 14, it's when you're beginning to make friendships, and you're as a girl anyway, it's all about your friendship group. it's like, oh, so-and-so's friends with me, that playground sort of vibe of like, the gangs and the friends. And then it graduates into the boys and the relationships. And I feel like that is where we lay the groundwork for our future relationships, whether we are going to accept being treated in a certain way. If we are treated cruelly in some way or made to feel less than or not worthy, or no, this is the treatment that is your, that you deserve in a hideous way, that is something that we're going to take into our grown-up relationships.
Absolutely. And that's really common. Just what you were speaking about being at school and the boys liking another girl. I had this last week with one of my clients, and she just took on the belief because this boy that she liked her friend and didn't like her. So she took on the belief that what she wanted wasn't available to her. She wasn't cool enough. She wasn't likable enough. And all of these other beliefs that we're just manifesting more of that in her life, right? Because that's the blueprint we're manifesting from.
Yeah.
This is so significant. There's a lot of stuff that goes on at school and in the playground that we then take on through our adulthood.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that is, because it seems sort of obvious that it might be what leads us in? So say, your client who thinks, oh, they're not quite good enough. Like if they then come across somebody who then is on, let's say, on the narcissistic spectrum and comes along and love bombs them and tells them they're God's gift, and then once they fall into that trap, then starts being treated pretty shoddily, but just thinks, oh, well, I don't have any option but to put up with this. I kind of deserve it. I mean, is that the class? Feel like that feels like the classic way into accepting being in a narcissistic relationship.
Absolutely. And it's so common, the women that I work with, just by mere nature of them having these limiting beliefs about themselves, then in their adult relationships, they start accepting breadcrumbs because they're believing that they're not worthy. Well, they've normalized love in a certain way in their childhood. Maybe they saw maybe their father was emotionally unavailable. So it's like, oh, this is love.
Yeah.
But also those beliefs that I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable. So they're so grateful to have breadcrumbs. And then it's kind of the bad behavior is kind of excused because it goes, oh, well, I've already concluded I'm not really worthy of being cared for. Well, that's a childhood belief, but it's still running the show. And that's actually why I went down the route of becoming a narcissistic abuse specialist, because I was realizing it was coming up so much with the PMDD clients. Either they had narcissistic parents or grandparents, or they were, what's really common with PMDD, because we feel that we're being hijacked for a week or 2 weeks of the month, we really question the relationship we're in, and we start to question whether it's a toxic relationship or not. It's very discombobulating when all this stuff comes up, and we just kind of become a bit of a recluse. A lot of people tend to kind of just shut themselves away because they feel that their relationships are not safe. Well, we need to get clarity on this, and this is the clarity that you do get, because once you've transformed your subconscious blueprint, then you can see clearly, and you can see, oh, actually that was me feeling unsafe because of the beliefs of because of the inner child. Or do you know what, this person is not honoring and respecting me in the way I now see that I deserve to be. And so it's time to just let go, because I'm not putting up with breadcrumbs anymore. I'm meant for more, and actually, I'd rather be on my own, which is where I got to ultimately. I'd rather be on my own, and actually, if I was going to have a relationship with somebody, it would have to be somebody who really enhanced my life, because I'm so happy with my life right now that I wouldn't want to accept anything less than. And I think that's a really wonderful place to be, having been one of those girls waiting for the fairy tale to feel completed because I found my prince. That's really, when I'm really honest with myself, that's really where I was. actually, that I wasn't enough on my own. And then I'll be happy when I find the one. When I get married, I'll be happy. When I have kids, I'll be happy. And it's like we're always chasing this thing in the external world. Then I'll be happy. Actually, once you're happy with yourself and you feel fulfilled and secure in your own skin, that's priceless, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's that choice to be, and it's a very classic, if you can't love yourself, how on earth you're gonna love somebody else, or how on earth is somebody else gonna love you? The self-love portion of that is such an important thing, and that's and self-love is all very well, but actually it begins with self-acceptance
Yeah.
and accepting that all of yourself. And I think that this, in terms of relationships, it is so important to understand that the first and foremost and most important thing is that you are happy with yourself, that you are happy in yourself, and that you can be your authentic self. And I think that a lot of, well, there's a sort of a way where you don't feel enough, and so you pretend to be somebody who you think might be enough, and then your partner's going, well, who's this person, because they don't really feel authentic, and so then they kind of draw away, and you're like, no, chasing after them. Like, it's you can get yourself from where you might be in a reasonable, healthy relationship with somebody and create something that's toxic and unhealthy because of your own self-beliefs. I think that is, and when you begin to heal yourself and begin to be authentically yourself, that's when the relationship, if it's going to come good, can come good. Because I think that yeah, it all starts with the self and with the self-love. So I'm interested because obviously I have a sheets and sheets of things and millions of tools that I give people, because when I'm doing a chakra reading, I always, it's a very common thing to find an imbalance in the heart chakra around self-love and self-acceptance. So I have lots of little tricks and tools that I give people to try to learn to love themselves. Tell me some of yours.
Well, you're so right. It is that self-acceptance. People kind of go, ooh, self-love, for me, it brings up, being at school as a teenager, maybe, oh, she loves herself,
Yes.
but it's self-acceptance and just the realization that, do you know what, there is no perfection. And this is the thing. It's like a lot of people I work with trying to be perfect because, oh, if I'm perfect, then I'll be lovable. But this is the child trying to be enough to be loved. And just the realization that there is no perfection in this human experience, like just there isn't. It's like you just deciding that, okay, this is the way I am right now, and I accept myself as imperfectly perfect, and I'm here to innovate on that and increase my emotional intelligence and grow and evolve, because that's what we're here for. And it's so important to choose somebody, if you're going to share your life with somebody, who is prepared to do that work with you and grow with you. Because
Yeah.
I found with doing this work, you're evolving and growing at such a rate. It's like exponential growth, and it's heartbreaking when you do grow out of relationships and you've kind of compromised, and you're like, am I going to compromise myself, or am I going to set myself free and allow myself to become who I'm becoming by doing this work on myself? And it's a choice, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
think that the most important thing is just realizing, you know what, there is no perfection, and accepting yourself as imperfectly perfect, and starting to just become the observer of how you speak to yourself. That is such a game changer when you have this little gatekeeper in your mind and you realize you have been abusing yourself, actually, just down to
Yeah.
the smallest things. If you knock a cup of coffee over or something, how you speak to yourself when you do that, well,
Yeah.
there's an inner child there, and it's your job, and your job only, to speak to that child like it's just been born, and it's your job to nurture it, and start to use different language. Oh, you silly Billy, and just really tender with yourself in a really nurturing, compassionate way.
Yeah, no, I think that um, that is such an important thing to accept yourself. I'm just looking, I've got a little cushion that somebody gave me, a friend gave me, that says I'm flawed and fabulous. And I look at it often and I'm like, yes, actually I am, as we all are, deeply flawed by God knows how many different things that have happened in our life, but I'm truly fabulous and I accept that. It's a big thing.
Absolutely.
But the other thing I just want to go back to and touch on is this thing about when our partners don't feel the need to do any inner work, which is something that I see a lot amongst my friends and clients, for sure, is that, I'm on this amazing journey. I'm making all these discoveries. I'm finding out about myself, and I can see this, it's like I've like these gates have been flung open and there's a huge, beautiful landscape out there to go and explore. And him indoors is just like, no, I just want everything to stay the same. It's fine. Can we just, do what we always do? Can we just not shift or change or, rock the boat at all? Let's just stay where we are. You're like, but look at all the stuff that's here for us. Um, gosh, I mean, I should know the answer to this because I know that my darling husband has really come on this journey with me, and it's just the most incredible thing to witness. And I don't know, I didn't make him do it. He chose to do it for
Yeah.
himself. Um, but I don't know how can we show men that there's this incredible thing out there for them? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Yeah, and this is the thing. You're so lucky. You're so lucky. So sometimes I get the husband saying, I want a bit of what she's had. And so they do the work, but this is really rare. And it's so frustrating because, and I've been there, my relationship, my 5-year relationship that came after um, my heartbreak. I just kept saying exactly what you just said. God, it could be amazing. Can you see how we could just live in harmony if you just did your part, And it's so frustrating. And I think we do make it worse by trying to lead them there. It's like you're leading the horse to water and it won't drink, and it's so
come.
frustrating.
Yeah.
And what all you can do, and this is what I say to my ladies now, all you can do is keep working on you.
Yes.
Take the pressure off anybody else. People, like, when they sort of wake up and do this work, they like, oh, they want their parents to do it, they want their sisters to do it, and they become quite pushy about it because they want others to see the light. And I, they're just going to create resistance. They're going to run away. They're going to run in the opposite direction. So all you can do is transform yourself and keep working on yourself until they go, I want some of what she's had.
Yeah, lead by example, I guess. Show the joy and the freedom and the response. And I think that change in response so a thing may happen and they may expect a typical response and from you, which is going into a big old, depressive type funk, or I don't know, an eating worms mode. But in
Mm,
fact, you go, do you know what? You can be expressive about this and say, I think that this is a moment where I would normally feel like X, but you know what? I'm choosing to feel like Y. And
yeah,
and isn't that great? Isn't that
yeah,
amazing? And I think that that is especially with your sisters and your mothers and your friends and so on, that's an easier way of showing. It's definitely a way to lead, I suppose, by just example. That's the best we can do. But doing all of this inner work is so fulfilling and so magical. And there's such a million, a wonderful myriad of different ways that we can do this work. And I think that the big thing that I'm taking away from you today, which is actually kind of a huge, big building block, and I hope that other people have heard this as well, is that your hormones and your hormonal waves that you go through are not causing your stuff. They're just bringing you closer to the stuff that you need to work on and that you can release and reprogram.
yeah, because you were meant for more and you're being called to transform that.
it's such a big mind shift. Just that understanding
Yeah,
without even doing the work. It's like, oh, because it feels, I think a lot of people feel like their hormones are out of their control. They feel like this
yeah,
whole PMS, PMDD situation is totally out of their control. It's just something
totally.
that happens to them. And what you're
Yeah,
saying is, no, this is something that can be a real tool for growth. It's
yeah.
actually a gift in a bizarre way.
Absolutely. You know, your birthright is joy and abundance. And it, you know, if you're not in that, if you're not able to live in that way and face life's challenges, because life will always challenge us, that's the nature of life. And
Mm,
our job is to grow in in resilience. Then there's something there to look at. I've always, even when I was seriously depressed in my teens, I always kept coming back to there must be more to life. There must
mm,
be more to life. Like I could feel this burning desire to find more meaning and purpose, and this, there must be more than what I'm experiencing. And I think a lot of people do have that, but because they don't see the what and the how, and they just get stuck there. It's like, well, first look at the stuff that's coming up for you, and everything will just become clear. Then you're blinded by the stress responses, right? Because that part of your brain, the problem solving part of your brain, disconnects when you are in a stress response. So just do this work, because you're being called to do it. Don't settle for less. And it's the same thing with the relationship thing, you know, when you're at this fork where you've been doing the work and you're just so fulfilled and secure in yourself, and life is so much more doable, and you're excited, and you're with somebody who actually you feel quite alone on your journey with. You start to feel alone in this journey, in this life, and you're at this crossroad. It's like, well, you've got to make a choice. And what is it in me that is accepting less than? Well, let's go to the subconscious root cause of it. What is it in me that's accepting less than, that's allowing me to tolerate this? And let's transform it. And then we can just let that go without the pain of the, you know, the abandonment wound.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. And I think that the abandonment wound, I mean, it's an interesting one because when you talk to people about, the inner child stuff and everybody has some kind of trauma, whether it's big T trauma or little T trauma, but the majority of people have some kind of little T trauma. And I would say that a large percentage of those it is an abandonment trauma, as it abandonment issues from that little 0 to 7-year-old person. Um, and I wanted to ask you what, this abandonment issue, which is can be quite mild, and it's something that for I don't know, for me personally, I can look back and go, yeah, I can see that that was my wound, but I didn't realize that until about, I don't know, 15 years ago. So I was a grown-ass woman, I had my own kids. I thought that my family life and my upbringing was just lovely and perfect and wholesome and good and no problems. But you then come back to it and realize, yeah, that was an issue for me. I mean, I suppose it's just going back, it's going back to what you said at the beginning, is that you just identify these little scenes that ingrained that in you. I'm trying to remember what my question was because my brain has skipped ahead and forgotten what my initial point was. But I think it was something around how do we deal with abandonment issues?
yeah. And so this is, we've got to kind of understand the nature of the child that created that. So, and this is why these sessions are so powerful, because you get to actually feel everything that child felt and realize, well, I'm not feeling like or acting like an autonomous, powerful woman. I am, because your beliefs create your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings dictate your behavior. So when you go to the beliefs of a child who is dependent on their caregivers, a child cannot survive without the caregiver.
Mm.
That's how we're feeling with the abandonment wound.
Yeah.
Dependent cannot survive without this person. They're helpless. They can't meet their own needs. It's very scary. So it's this imprint on the nervous system of literally death, because that's how it feels for the child. They can't
Yeah.
survive without this person. And
Yeah.
so when you change the meaning associated to it at a deep subconscious level and upgrade the child to the person, the adult that you now are, you validate yourself. You don't depend on anyone else's validation. Which is such a powerful realization, so simple yet so powerful. You're autonomous. You have freedom to go get in your car, go get money out the cash machine. You're not that child anymore. So it's all these reframing techniques, because then you go from a feeling of like death, end of the world, been abandoned. That's
Yeah.
the child, to upgrading to the software of the autonomous adults. It's a game changer.
And is there issues here around forgiveness? Because if you go back and you do this work and you go, oh my God, my parents did X to me, or this belief and then it's very easy then, I can imagine, to get into a state of blame and going, well, they did this, and oh my God, now I'm actually really, really angry with the way that I've been treated. Um, and they should have known better. Like you can get into a whole narrative around that. Is that a common thing to happen?
Yeah, so there is, you start to see things through different lenses. It's part of the process. And we're all doing our best as parents.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up and says, today I'm going to mess up my child. You as a child, you kind of got to see your parents as perfect, because you're depending on them to keep you alive. So that's why we automatically go, oh, it must be me. I'm the one that's wrong.
Mm.
So there is a process, and people often worry about the effect of their behavior. Once you do this inner child work, then the automatic thing is, oh, I've been messing up my child. What will my, and it's
Oh,
like, this is their journey,
yes. Yeah.
and it's part of their journey.
Yeah.
We're all
That's
doing our
certainly where I got to when I started doing this work, was like, oh my God, what have I done? Because I
yeah,
know I had my kids young. I had them both by the time I was 30, and I didn't really start doing this work until they were like 10. And I'm like, okay, so I need to have a long chat, just
yeah.
like try and sort this out with them. So yeah, but it's very, I think that forgiveness and that grace comes when, as a parent, you realize as yourself, you go, actually, all parents are just doing the best that they possibly can at
Yeah.
the time. And so that's the easy way to move forward in forgiveness. I do understand
And
that.
the forgiveness really is, it comes by doing the work, because it can no longer affect you anymore, because you've resolved it. You've done the root cause resolution. So the forgiveness just kind of happens as part
Yeah.
of the process. You can
Yeah.
let go because you have resolved it. It wasn't your fault, and it wasn't really there. They were doing their best. I mean, there's a range of, they were doing their best and actually they could have done better, but this is what we were dealt with, and this is a
Yeah.
situation. But by doing the resolution and actually realizing, well, I'm not a dependent child. I don't depend on them. And if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be where I am now with this huge awakening.
Yeah.
And and that's what I'm going to say to the mothers who are doing the work. You're doing the work. You've given them the greatest gift you could ever give your child. You've awoken, and that's going to transform your child's life in a way that you couldn't imagine, because you're showing up totally differently, and they feel that, because children are all feeling. And so, oh, magic.
Mm.
So don't judge yourself.
And on that note, yes, I think that's a good way to finish. Listen, Chloe, I've realized, just looked at the clock and seen we've been chatting for so long. Thank you. Tell everybody where they can get hold of you, what you offer in the way of your courses and so on, your offerings, and how people can get in touch with you.
Well, thank you. I am on Instagram, so follow me on Instagram because I love Instagram. And then my program, my signature program, Wounds into Wings, is an 8-week program. If you're ready to do the work, then book a free 15-minute call with me. People already feel better after that call. We'll start mapping out your healing journey. And yeah, we do the one-to-one subconscious work, and you have emotional freedom, become the most conscious parent, and have beautiful, harmonious relationships. And most importantly, wake up feeling excited to be alive and, yeah, secure in yourself and love life again.
What a gift. And your website is Chloe Jimenez-Peters. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can find you and look at your beautiful website and look at your where you live in the most beautiful place in Mallorca and on a Spanish island. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, go and have a read of Chloe's website. It is beautiful and the pictures are stunning. So it's a nice 10-minute browse around there. So thank you, Chloe. It's been really wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosanne. Such a pleasure.